Welcome to this week's episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm. This week, we sit down with Missouri State head coach Ryan Beard. In this conversation, Coach Beard discusses the value of building genuine relationships, taking leaps of faith to advance his career, and his AFCA 35 under 35 experience this past January. But first, a word from CoachComm.
Deuce left, check with me. If they're in quarters match, we're going to Pittsburgh or Ohio.
They're in zero.
Let's go Hippo, Seattle, wide choice. If we call the protection right, it's 6.
When a play call is the difference between winning and losing, your headset choice could be your most important decision. When the call counts, CoachComm is the only choice for clear, dependable communication. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
We got it, guys. Good job.
Now, let's get inside the headset with Coach Beard.
Coach Beard, what's going on, man? How are you?
Mario, how are you doing, man? Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. I know we talked about it at the convention, making this happen, man. And then anytime I can get a head ball coach's time for an hour is always a blessing. So I appreciate you taking the time. Let's go ahead and dive into this bad boy. When did you decide you want to be a part of this great profession?
So after I had a good playing career at Western Kentucky, I played for Coach Willie Taggart, started off with David Ellison. And honestly, it took about 2 weeks. After the season was over, I was recovering from an injury. I had pretty much a career-ending injury against LSU, basically blew my whole shoulder out. And about Monday on week 2, I woke up in December, actually it was late November, and it hit me that I love the game. I have to give back to the game, and I got to find any way that I can get in and do that. I mean, it was a burning desire to just get back to the structure and get back to the camaraderie that's in the locker room. And, I was able to be around a bunch of good coaches because a lot of people looked at it as a negative. But when I was a player, I played for 2 head coaches, 2 defensive coordinators, and 5 DB coaches, all of which went on to have good careers. So I basically marched into Coach Willie Taggart's office and said, hey, Coach, listen, I want to do what you're doing. I want to pour into young men. I want to, be around ball the rest of my life. I want to coach. And you'll laugh at this. He looked at me and said, I don't really know if you do, Ryan. He did. I swear he did. He goes, man, I got a GA spot coming open, but I think me and you need to talk a little bit about what that entails. So he actually had me volunteer for about 5-6 months. Before I even got the GA job, I said, Coach, what do you need? He goes, whatever we ask. So make coffee, make nutrition shakes in the weight room, wipe down weights. And then I finally got my start that March with spring ball as a GA.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, you kind of talked about something there, and I think any time I can ask the question, because I do think this is something that is important for us to address with our players a little bit, is, you said your career got cut short, but, man, you were a 2-time all-conference, Sun Belt all-freshman team. So you weren't just having a career. Like, I just had a career. I just was on the team, ran down on kickoff every now and again, made a couple plays here and there. But, I mean, you were impactful. Right? Things go a certain type of way, you might have an opportunity to go play at the next level. And sometimes when that either just ends naturally where you just fulfill your four years of playing and, you're done, that semester's tough. But when you have an injury and you end up missing some of your senior year, I know that's ultimately really tough. What were those days like as you were trying to figure out, what was next for you? Was it tough? Was it difficult? We're kind of in that, I hate saying dark place, because dark place I know that thing can get deep, but where were you at mentally?
No, I think you're right, Mario. I think it certainly gets to be some dark moments because, again, we all think that we've got a chance at the NFL. I was proud of my career at Western Kentucky. And I was proud of what we did there. And when that moment happens that hey, you're no longer, the agents call, and all of a sudden you take an injury on national TV and the phone stops ringing.
Yeah.
There is no hey, how are you? There's no, that's not how this works. So you kind of got to pick yourself up by the bootstraps and figure out who you are without the helmet on, figure out who you are as a man, what you got deep down inside of you, and what you can look forward to, because it is difficult because we're so involved in who we are as a football player. That becomes our identity so much. There is a transition period into real life in regards to, we are built and perfectly made in the good Lord's image. We do have things that are of value to the world outside of football and outside of sport. And, it was one of those things that it took some time. I was kind of dipped into some different things and tried to just give myself a little break and tried to visualize my life in 40 years and what I wanted it to look like. And then again, after about 2 weeks of the season being over, I realized I wanted to be a football coach, and I was willing to do whatever it took to get it.
Man, that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. And, hopefully coaches can take that and always, as those seniors move on in the next direction, it's so easy as a coach just to be worried about the next thing, but just to show them a little love on the way out, check up on them as they're making that transition. Either hopefully you got a guy that's good enough to go to the league, but they transition off into the real world. I think that's important. Now, I made a big mistake as I'm sitting here looking at this stuff. I looked at the dates of when you were playing, and I was the receiver coach over at ULM. So we had some. I was trying to burn you on some of these plays. I need to go back.
Hey, there you go.
Pull up some old scouting reports. That officially makes me feel old, man. Just to have a head ball coach on here and the coached against them. So that's that's a crazy moment for me right there. But you mentioned you finished your playing career up. And by spring, you said March, you were starting a career as a graduate assistant. I can only imagine being a big time player at a school like that. You probably a popular guy, hanging out with the players and all that kind of stuff. Talk to us about that line in the sand that you have to draw once you enter this professional realm. This, hey, I'm going to be a coach. I'm not going to be your homeboy anymore. And there's a respect level that you can have where you can maintain a friendship per se, but what was that like for you, that transition of having to be a coach now at this point in time?
Yeah, it's certainly challenging because, again, just like you said, you're going out celebrating wins with the guys. You're in the locker room cutting up. You're doing this and that, and the one thing that I think really did help me was we were in a transition phase at Western Kentucky, so I didn't have a ton of older guys that really. I think it was me, Bobby Rainey, Casey Tinius, maybe 3 or 4 others that really made it through to our senior year. So they already looked at me as one of the old heads that was just basically, I was there for ball. I love ball. I would get them in position to make plays because, you briefly talked about the scouting report. Hey, I'm sure you didn't have to worry about me too much out there covering wide receivers. Okay? But no, on a serious note, for the young coaches that are listening, you have to have a man-to-man talk with these guys that you're going to have to be coaching, and I was able to do that. I really, this is one way to do it. It's just my way. I had them all over to the house where we used to cut up and have fun and cook out at. We cooked some food. We sat down, and I simply told the guys, I said, guys, this is what I want to do with my life, and I believe in you all, but there is no more, hey, I need you to have my back and, be respectful on the field. I'm going to respect you. I'm not going to call you out your name or anything like that. I'm going to be demanding, not demeaning, and I got your back. And I think from that point on, they understood the look in my eye and the way I approached them as men, and they respected that. They respected that I took the time to talk to them about it and not just come out, whistle blowing, firing, trying to get them on the line. That would have never worked.
Right.
Because we're all human. We all have, buttons we can push and things that we think are right and wrong. And that was my way to do it because I was always close with the guys, and it helped that they were a younger group and the transition was pretty smooth.
So I'm going to ask this question here. It might spring forward into some, a little bit beyond your opportunity at Western Kentucky, but you said something interesting. You said some people might look at this as a bad thing, but I had 2 head coaches, 5 DB coaches, I think you said 2 defensive coordinators. And man, that was the biggest blessing to me as a coach. As I got into the profession, I went to West Point out of high school, and I played there for a year, and I transferred to Baylor. And so automatically I walked into the profession with a bigger network, of guys that I got recruited by, that I played under. And so it was helpful. I ended up coaching for both my head coach at Baylor and my head coach at Army when it was all said and done. So I kind of had this network, at least for the profession standpoint. Did that end up playing a role for you at any point in time? Did you reconnect with any of those guys down the road at all?
I'm still in contact with almost all of them.
Good.
I mean, it is really, really crazy how it worked out for me. I mean, just some of them. I'm like T-Rob, Tavares Robinson was my first DB coach. We all know what he's doing in the profession.
Right.
I mean, it goes on and on. Lance Guidry was a defensive coordinator of mine. It's one of those things. Clayton White. It was just unbelievable. Scott Booker, the amount of people that came through Western Kentucky at that time. And I think one thing that's helped me separate a little bit is my ability to maintain meaningful relationships and be connected to the people that have helped me. Because the one thing that I can say that you can never be above shooting a text saying, hey, man, thinking about you, hope everything's well, checking on the family. It doesn't have to just be at Christmas.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to just be, hey, man, Merry Christmas,
Right.
And then you look through your text and you've got Christmas or Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year. It runs down the line, and that's all you're sitting there talking to the guys about.
Yeah.
But I was able to create meaningful relationships with the guys, and I think one of the aspects that helped me was how I approached the game as a player, because I wanted to be the very best I could be at my craft. And I had the football IQ to put myself and our defense in position to make plays.
Absolutely. Now, you kind of got a preface before you took the job. You mentioned Coach Taggart basically saying, hey, man, you sure you want to do this? Because that's what comes with it. I think everybody that, especially when you can do it at your own place, obviously there was transitions and different coaches, but, you go out there and you play, you have success, you're all conference, your team was, I think your team was pretty good around that time too. Then you look behind the scenes. Then you're actively behind the scenes. How eye-opening was that for you to all of a sudden go behind the scenes and say, "Oh wow, this is where our scouting report came from. This is what the formation and play that popped up on the screen every time came from." I didn't realize somebody was back here doing all this.
It's extremely eye-opening. And again, full transparency, I have no family in the coaching business. My dad's a road contractor. My mother's in marketing. So this was just me stepping out saying, hey, this is what I love. This is what I'm going to do. And, we all think we're super busy, overwhelmed as players.
Yeah.
And then you sit there and go into the life of a coach and you go,
what?
Hang on. Like, you sit there and you check your watch and you go, we got to be eating dinner sometime soon.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, dinner will be brought in an hour or two. It was just, I have to admit, at first, it gets a little overwhelming. And when I walked into Coach Taggart's office, I was assuming that he honestly would be like, man, Beard, you gave me 4 great years. You're a good player. You're in. But in hindsight, it made me, almost understand what, to me, the foundation of coaching is servant leadership. Being able to put, what you've done in your career, all that aside, and make it about the people you're pouring into, the people that you're preparing to play now, the people that you're literally serving young men every single day, and the people that influence their lives.
Right. And so you go on and kind of learn the ropes, what's going on behind the scene, learn that servant leadership. I think we all probably have a few nights that we can think about really questioning, how much of this profession we want to be a part of. I know it's a lot of coaches. No, I never questioned. I'm like, nah, yeah, you did. I had those nights myself.
Mario, I did for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Those nights come. You kind of get beyond that, and you're able to leverage yourself into an opportunity as a defensive QC there at Louisville. Just talk a little bit about how that opportunity came about. This is your, I always say the first job is typically the hardest one. And sometimes you can get a little bit of a leg up when you're able to kind of get that first job at your alma mater. But that first one, you really got to reach out to your network. You really got to potentially interview. What went down for you to get that job?
Yeah, here's a cool one about this. So after, I think it was 2011, 2012, Coach Taggart was transitioning to South Florida. And he went in, he says, hey, Beard, listen, I got a job for you. But he goes, you played for me, you know me. He said, Bobby Petrino is about to come in and be the head coach at Western Kentucky. He goes, I'm always going to be your guy. You've played for me. I know you. I love you. I got your back. I think it would be in your best interest to stay here for one more year and learn from Coach Bobby Petrino and see what shakes from there. So I went in and, again, basically just put my guts on the table for Coach Petrino, told him how much coaching means to me, how much I've learned, how much of an asset I would try to be for him. And then I did 1 year with him as a GA at Western Kentucky, and I was able to go with him to Louisville from Western Kentucky.
Okay, I got you. So,
which was huge.
So I talked about the interview process. You had a 1 year straight up interview with them, right?
I had a tryout, and it was, it was different because the cool thing about coaching and the uniqueness of it is we talked about it a little bit earlier. We're all human. There's situations that you approach differently than I approach, and differently than Jeff Brom, Bobby Petrino, Jim McElwain, all the guys I worked for. They all do it differently. And I think I really respected Coach Taggart for the words he said, because I could have easily gone with him.
Yeah.
He knew I could work, and he was like, I want you to come. But he goes, you need to think about it from a full, get the 10,000 foot perspective and look at it this way.
Yeah. And ultimately, once again, I was just talking about that network. This just broadens your network to be able to kind of get around and be around somebody else, and then ultimately see how somebody else does things. Although you kind of got a little bit of a view of that as a defensive back, just having so many different coaches, but just doing it at the assistant coaching level. And so we're going to come back to that question here, because you've had the opportunity to work for a bunch of tremendous coaches, all very different points and times in their career.
Yeah.
I want to see how that end up balling up and been a part of who you are as a head ball coach, but we'll get there shortly. So you make the transition over there to Louisville with Coach Petrino and his and I'm assuming some of the staff, but you're not a graduate assistant anymore. You transition to a defensive quality control role. Yeah, man. I mean, especially around this time. When is this? 14? Yeah, man. I think it has a little bit more of a structure when you start talking about a QC, but I remember around this time, man, you said QC, that could mean you were an extra GA. You said QC at a different spot, that could mean you were a coach that probably shouldn't have been on the field, but you were sneaking on the field a little bit. What did that look like for you? What was that role for you at Louisville?
Yeah, I was there with Greg Brown. I was basically the assistant DB coach. That's what Coach Petrino brought me in for. He said, hey, man, you coach as much as you possibly can within the rules. Obviously, everything we do was within the rules. So I made sure that I was doing exactly what I was supposed to do. But in the film room, I was, helping run the meetings. I was doing all these things that, again, one thing about Coach Bobby Petrino is he does a nice job of getting his assistant coaches to understand what the next job will look like. If you're a GA, what do you need to do to work on to be a position coach? If you're a position coach, hey, get your interview book ready, get your drill book, get your philosophy and scheme ready to be a coordinator. So that was a really, really good job for me, because it gave me access to kind of having my own room without actually having my name on the door, which was really, really good for me. And we were able to coach a Thorpe Award winner in Gerard Holloman. He had 14 interceptions that year. Jair Alexander was on that team. We had some unbelievable ball players on that defense. And, working with Todd Grantham was a learning experience in itself. So it was a really, really good experience for me there.
Good. Well, we kind of talked about how you leveraged into that job, the job itself. But this was a quick stay, and your next 3 opportunities kind of end up being some very quick stops. And so let's talk about 2015. You take the opportunity at Northern Michigan once again. Before I ask how it went down, what is your perspective? And I know it's hard to ask this question now, but at that point in time, what were you kind of thinking about the profession? I think I'll preface it with this. I think one of the things that was eye-opening to me was in my first couple of years at the collegiate level that I was in Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana, bang, bang, bang. And it was like, wow, we're ripping and running, we're moving around. I knew it was a part of it, but I didn't know it was a part of it. So I was kind of loading up the moving trucks and, bouncing around. You're experiencing this at this point in time. What are your thoughts about kind of that volatility of the profession?
Yeah, I don't think it really hit me, Mario, honestly, the volatility, until I had a wife and a family, and it really started to hit me more. To be honest, I think I was probably a little naive in regards to, hey, I'm single. Like you said, we're ripping and running. We're having a good time, sticking and moving, trying to get to where we want to get in the profession. And then, as you know, when you're a father, everything changes. I mean, your whole life changes, and your perspective changes, and how you view things changes. So at that point, to be honest, I was ready to – I didn't care where you wanted me to go. If you wanted me to go to Hawaii and coach whatever you wanted me, I'm ready to have my name on the door and try to do it. Have Ryan Beard be the position coach.
Right.
I had done the GA thing for 4 years. I've been a QC for 2 years. And again, I lean heavily on my head coaches that I've worked for. I went into Coach Petrino's room and I said, Coach, man, there's this job I would really like. What do you think? I said, I know I'm going to be basically, and we'll get to this later, what I actually did at Northern Michigan, because I don't know if you coach D2, but it's literally anything and everything. Yeah. But I did. I said, hey, man, listen, I got this opportunity. He goes, Ryan, what do you want? He goes, you've been a GA, you've been a QC. He said, what do you want to do? I said, Coach, all I want to do is coach ball. I want to influence young men's lives in a positive way. And I think that this is a good step. He goes, you just answered the question. He goes, the logo doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. He goes, if you want to coach, go coach ball. He said, if you're a good enough coach and you get some breaks here and there, you can get back to the level you want to be at. He said, this is a good move for you. Go get out of your comfort zone and experience this D2 life. So that's what I did.
Yeah. Well, I spent some time at D2, so I look forward to getting into that. But I want to ask about that question because, man, you know, a mentor of mine, he would always hone in on like, man, guys that are always in it for, they have their reason, and no reason is wrong. No reason. I think it's a right reason whenever you start talking about just pouring into other people. I think that's always a good answer. But he was like, man, some people want to be Division I forever. They care about that logo on the shirt. Some people want to make as much money as they can. Some people truly just want to coach ball and they can't live without it. And I don't know. It always kind of stuck out to me. And it almost seems like in a very interesting way that maybe was that kind of what he was alluding to when he asked you, what do you want?
That's exactly what it was. Yeah. You know, and you know, just like you said, is the emblem what you want? Is the free food at the the training table what you want, or do you want to be a man that these young men look to in times of trials and tribulations? Do you want to have the responsibility of having your own room? Do you want to go somewhere that's 16 hours away that you know no one, no girl, no nothing, and try to figure it out? And to me, that was important because I had always kind of been around that region of the United States, and I thought, hey, man, if we're going to make this jump, let's go in both feet. Yeah. So I went up there all alone. I mean, just kind of did my thing up there, and that's when I really realized that there is so much great, just the nuances of what we do on a day-to-day basis is so much more important than just your win-loss record.
Yeah.
Because, you know, and again, me and you can talk candidly because we've both been in D2. There's a lot of those guys paying a lot of money to go to school.
Yeah.
And they're working just as hard as everyone else to earn the wins and loss. You know what I mean? To get to that point to where they want to go because they love the game.
Yeah. That's
right. And the one thing, let's not make any mistake about it. There are great players and great coaches at every level.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
No matter high school, JUCO, D3, NAIA, Power 5, Power 4, whatever it's called now. If you can coach, it's clearly seen.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now, one thing I want to put the pause button on. You were talking about just navigating a profession, the volatility. Your answer with, I didn't have my wife, I didn't have my kid at the time. So whenever you meet your current wife, whenever you meet her, just pinpoint it in the story for me. So because I'm gonna have some questions on that about when she shows up into this professional into your journey. Okay. Now back to the job in Northern Michigan. You get this opportunity. Now, did you have to interview for this position?
I did. I went up there, knew no one, went up just blindly, I think I saw it on the scoop.
Yeah.
And I shot my email, had all my guys call, and I went up and interviewed. And we did the whole thing. You know, we did the breakfast with the coordinator. We did the film session. We did top 5 pressures. We did, coverage scheme that you like to run versus, some RPO stuff or, whatever it might be. And then, it finally ended with, dinner with the head coach. That was my first real interview to really get on the board in front of 15 people trying to grill you. And, the one thing about those type of interviews, there's probably 3 or 4 guys in that interview that wanted your job.
I want your job. That's right.
And those people don't think about it like that, but it takes, and hats off to all the guys saying yes to interviews, because I always say, hey, say yes to the interview. What's the worst that can happen? They tell you no. Well, hey, at least you got the experience of interviewing.
Amen.
So no, that was it was a fun experience up at Northern Michigan, and I didn't really. Chris Ostrowski, who's the offensive coordinator at Yale now, was my head coach. Great head coach, and I give him a hard time all the time because I'm like, CO, man, you didn't tell me I was going to be making peanut butter and jellies before fall camp days and be the equipment liaison.
Right.
And hey, coach, our start linebacker, his pad flap just broke off. I got to go get him a new set.
Right. Yeah, that wasn't in it was a lot that D2 and D3 and NAI. It's a lot of stuff that gets left off those job descriptions sometimes, but makes you a better person when you got the opportunity to kind of go through that, and especially if you get to ever sit in your seat and be as fortunate enough, it gives you a respect level for the guys when you have them. When you have the equipment people, when you have somebody mark the fields, when you got somebody that's responsible for those peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, gives you a whole nother respect level for them. Now, just real quick on the interview. D2, man, that stuff can be wild, as you mentioned. So did they have you drive up? Did they fly you up? Did they put you in a hotel? Was it the whole shebang bang?
No, I got the whole thing. I got to fly in, stayed in the hotel, did that whole thing. They did it first class, and that's, I'm gonna get to it later about like being where your feet are. They did a great job of that. You can make it big time wherever you're at.
Absolutely. And
Chris Ostrowski and that administration at Northern Michigan was phenomenal. I mean, we had Jordan travel suits. They were doing it right. So it was not half an interview process. It was everything that I could ask for and more. And luckily, again, working for the guys I had worked for, they had me prepped pretty well. I mean, it was
okay.
It was a good time. I was ready to roll.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask you if old Coach Beard from 2024 was interviewing Coach Beard there that did that Northern Michigan interview. What would you say? Did you feel like you killed it, or did you walk out of there with anything that was like, you know what, I could have been a little more prepared. I wasn't quite ready for that question. How do you think you did?
I would look at him and I'd say, hey, son, man, you got a lot of passion, energy. I know where your heart's at, but boy, we still need to get some work in on just the overall sense of being a coach.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what I led with, because I think that throughout my career has helped separate me in regards to, be yourself. Yeah. I can't try to be, Coach Price. I can't try to be Coach Petrino. I can't try to be Coach Brom and these guys. You got to be uniquely you. And one thing throughout my career and throughout even the playing days was, and my mom's the best. You'll love this. She goes, Ryan, it's your blessing and your curse. I have an edge. You know what I mean? Sometimes it gets you in trouble. Sometimes, you're the belle of the ball. It's just, you have to be who you are and embrace that. And that's really what I led with. I was like, hey man, this is what we're going to do. And I believed it. Hey, you would have thought that it could have been totally wrong, but I could have made you believe it.
Yeah, that definitely, it can be a gift and a curse right there. Now, you've alluded to a little bit of the D2 experience, which, I mean, I say straight up was probably, you talk about growth in those early years, the opportunity to just grow as a coach, not necessarily just being a good X and O coach, but just growing in the totality of the profession. I mean, the D2 thing was amazing because, I played Division I ball like yourself, and, it was all my experience prior to this opportunity. And then you walk in there and you're like, man, that dude could play for us. Dang, this dude is 29. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I got to go line the fields. And it was just so much stuff. Oh, I'm recruiting and I'm still breaking down film, man. It was just so much that I got to experience at that time. Talk about, along those lines, your experience at the Division II level.
Yeah, I honestly think that was my biggest year of growth that I've ever had. Again, I was there alone. I was trying to manage being a position coach. Being away from everything I've known, the structure was different, and learning how to thrive in not only a new climate, but around guys you don't know as coaches, around new players. And Mario, one of the biggest things about that is you have to be able to structure your practice differently. You don't have 5 GAs, QCs running around picking up equipment for you, or even getting it to begin with.
Yeah.
So the ability to coach and maintain your integrity of what you're trying to do schematically while also inspiring at the same time, it's a really, really unique balance because, again, like I said, I'm coming out jogging to a fall camp day with Jif peanut butter on my long sleeve.
Right.
Hell, the sandwich guy just became, the DB coach in about 5 seconds on the sprint over to the field.
That's right.
And it's really unique. And that's why, honestly, I value the guys that have taken that, and that jump from D2, D3 or JUCO and kind of earn their stripes working up because I know what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there. I've done it. A lot of guys can sit here and talk about the grind of lower levels, but when you do it and you're immersed in that situation,
yeah,
it changes you. And I think it helps you grow in a bigger and better person.
There's no doubt about it. Well, you spend that year there in Northern Michigan, and then you have opportunity to come back to your alma mater. So once again, just big on transitions. How did that come about? Why did you take the job, and what was the interview process like?
We did a nice job at Northern Michigan with the defense. I feel like we prepared guys to play the very best they could. We didn't win a ton of ball games, but there's a lot of things that go into that. My path had crossed with Jeff Brom during my time at Western Kentucky, and we had a great relationship. And I talked to you earlier about just being able to feed those relationships and really develop an actual bond with someone and not just a high buy. And that's what I was able to do with Jeff Brom. We get along really well. We see the game similarly. And, here's for all the guys that think that you can't go down and get back up. When Jeff called about the job, he said, Ryan, listen, man, when you were a young coach and you were GA and QC, I didn't really know if you were willing to move and stick and move and do what it takes to be a coach. And you taking that D2 job and you showing me that, you can go do it on your own. You can go have a successful group. You can go do your thing. That's really the only reason that I want you to come be my TV coach because you got everything else. I just wanted to make sure that you were able to run your own room and do things as an individual away from, the guys that you've been with forever.
Yeah. Now, you said Jeff Brom. I mean, you said Petrino and Willie Taggart. I definitely remember his impact there at Western Kentucky. And, I was on a podcast a few weeks ago and I was talking to a guy and we were talking about some of these places that, obviously when you're recruiting, you think DFW, Miami, certain spots in California for linemen, you're going up north, I'm talking about from a recruiting standpoint, but you start talking about some of these coaching places that just a ton of really good coaches have kind of came from. It was interesting in Western Kentucky. Somebody was like, Western Kentucky's kind of on that list. We were talking about University of Houston,
sure.
Youngstown State. But yeah, I mean, Western Kentucky, for whatever reason, is just one of these places where a lot of really good coaches come and go and their career continue to blossom. And kind of it's a stop that a lot of really good coaches have made. What just from your perspective as a former player, you may not have an answer for this, but what do you think is so special about that spot that allows for coaches to continue to thrive and kind of be a hotbed for some coaches?
Yeah, I think it's a really good landing point. I think, again, I love Western Kentucky. That's home for me. I think anywhere that you can have a really thriving community as well as support for the university, you got a chance to be successful. And, sometimes guys got to grit their teeth a little bit on the D3, D2 and work your way up. And that's a really good place to do that. And I want to backtrack just a little bit because, we've talked about our network of coaches and who you're around. And, I'm big on not ever trying to be the smartest person in the room because you'll never grow. You got to check out our GAQC room at Louisville in 2014. You ready for this?
Yes, sir.
So Will Stein, offensive coordinator at Oregon.
That's right.
All right. Court Dennison. He's with me now as a linebackers coach, was at Miami and Louisville and Oregon.
Oh, yeah.
Derek Nicholson. All right. He's a co-DC at Miami. Who else? Kevin Elliott, special teams coordinator at Stony Brook. Justin Burke was in there for a little bit with us, and he's now the
OC at UTSA.
Was coordinator at UTSA, doing an incredible job.
Yeah.
I mean, that room, I can't believe. I still look back at pictures and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that is just so crazy. It's such a profession of, the joy of watching people bloom around you and,
right.
I know that was off circuit for the interview, but I had to just talk about the importance of being around the right people.
I'm happy you said that though, because and this isn't pat myself on the back here, but 4 of those 6 guys you just named were 3,535 members. At some point in time, obviously you were this past year as the head coach. I think when Burke was in, he was at USF as maybe the special teams coordinator. I think when Will Stein was in, he might have. Is he OC or DC? He's a OC.
OC.
He's an OC. Yeah, he wasn't an OC at the time at UTSA. He was a position coach.
Okay.
It was just like, obviously I see the quad. Court Dennison was in it, and he was I think he was at Louisville. I think he had just got the inside linebacker's job or something like that. So it was like, man, like I know how special these dudes are because I've spent some time with them, man. That's an awesome group. I'm a little jealous I didn't get those other 2 guys in the program though. So maybe if they're still under that threshold, I can get them in. But yeah, that's awesome. I'm happy you pinpoint. Louisville is another place too. But yeah, Louisville is. Man, we've had Pete Thomas, Darrell Sims when he was at Louisville at the time. I think he was in the program. Yeah, so Louisville is definitely on that list of talented coaches that kind of come through.
And it's incredible. And going back to Western Kentucky again, Travaris Robinson, DC, big time DC, Clayton White, big time DC, Jeff Brom, Bobby Petrino, Willie Taggart, Ray Woody's the head coach now down at Bethune. There's been just a million. Zach Azzani, NFL coach. I mean, you can go on and on and on. And that was just in my era, which is crazy. So it's, I'm happy to see the success that Western Kentucky's had because Mario, my signing class was the first of the transition. That's the uniqueness about kind of where I'm at right now is because I signed the first. We were the first signing class for FBS, and now we're transitioning here from FCS to FBS. So it's kind of crazy seeing both sides.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I didn't realize that. Now let's get back to Western Kentucky. So you get the opportunity to come back. You're under Coach Brom there, and what I don't know, man. You played there. You had your early part of your career, your GA. What is it like to come back to your alma mater? Your name's on like you were saying earlier, your name's on the door. You know what I'm saying? Defensive backs coach, you running a room. You get to walk out where you pour blood, sweat, and tears at, every day. What was that like for you? Just from a,
yeah, it was extremely fulfilling.
Yeah.
And my family's still there. So if you want to really find a recruiter that can recruit to a place, have them believe in it as much as I believed in some of the jobs that I've taken, because that's when you really have something, is when you truly believe in the coaches that you're around and the institution that you're working for. Again, whether that be Northern Michigan, Missouri State, Western Kentucky, Louisville, Central Michigan, any of those, it's just to be able to go back to your hometown, your alma mater, like you said, have your name on the door and have success. Let's not, having the success was huge. We won the conference championship, got a Conference USA ring, and then just beat the brakes off Memphis in the bowl game, which was, you can't beat that, being down in Boca and having a big win.
Yeah.
And transition with coaches. So it was a really special year, Mario. I got to admit, it was really, really special.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Now, tough question, I guess, maybe not. What was the difference between, when did you leave Western Kentucky? 2013. Version of yourself and that guy that went and got some experience out there a little bit, had his own room for a little bit up in Northern Michigan, got a taste of the ACC and all that kind of stuff in Louisville, to be able to come back in 2016. What was the difference in Coach Beard 13 and 16?
I think I got life can sometimes humble you. Sometimes you think you're the man and you think, you're a good coach, you're young, you're running hard, you're doing all these things. Adversity and real life trials just do something to you from a maturity standpoint. And I'm not even talking about coaching. I just think the years maturing and being able to be around men in the profession that I admire and that do things the right way and that have set records and that are going on to bigger and better things, and just to absorb. Because again, I'm sure you were the same way as a player. Sometimes we get so caught up in, the facade of, big bad me. You start to see the bigger picture and what really matters in life. And I also think, it's not a negative to grow like that, because you see that you don't have to be the hot shot all the time to make an impact.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be, the loudest in the room to make your presence felt. Just those types of things, I think I was the most proud of in my personal maturity and my personal journey, is just understanding that everyone has a story, to respect everyone as they come and try to meet them where they are.
Absolutely. Now, your next job from Western Kentucky was at Louisville, and I'm curious how that ended up. That transition happened, because I just asked you, I guess about 4 years ago, in the real time, you had transitioned from Western Kentucky to Louisville. What transpired there for you to take that opportunity?
Yeah, so again, I've been a part of a bunch of crazy coaching transitions. So Jeff was on his way to Purdue, and I wanted to stay on the field and kind of get into bigger ball. So Bobby had a spot come open as a QC at the time, understanding that the 10th assistant was about to become a thing.
Yeah.
So again, because I told him, I said, Coach, I love you. I want to come work for you. I don't want to be, doing all the office. I don't want to be involved in the paperwork stuff. I love to coach. I want to be hands-on. I want to coach. And he presented that opportunity to me with the understanding of, hey, listen, help me out with this role, and then the next year we'll be able to elevate you, and you can go get off and running with that. And it actually, this will be more in the next part of our talk, but when I was able to jump into special teams, I think that really took me, to a whole different level as a football coach, because as when you're working with special teams, there's no one that sees the whole team more than the special teams coordinator and the wait staff.
Yep.
And you have to be able to identify talent, identify skill sets, and be able to have offensive defense working together in a cohesive unit to have success.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's funny that you said that about special teams, and man, we've been doing this podcast for a minute now, about 400 episodes, and man, I can't even think of who it was, but somebody mentioned about the impact of a special teams coach, and that was my last job. I was a special teams coordinator at Davidson College, and I remember running one meeting, and I looked around, and I was like, dang, the head coach is looking at me, the OC is looking at me, DC is looking at me, every last coach on the staff is looking at me, every kid minus a few offensive linemen, a couple quarterbacks, and that was about it. And I was like, man, like that's pretty awesome, and you better be on it. You know what I'm saying? You better be on it, because everybody's watching you. And it made me realize, and I said the same thing on that podcast. So I wish I had a few more years to coach after that opportunity, because it made me realize, like, man, I was a relationship guy, man. I knew all the kids in the building, but you realize you really don't know them, because you pretty much either help recruit that defensive line guy. I was a receivers coach. Why would I really know the second string D line guy? I don't, other than high fiving them. And that was something I wanted to do a lot better job of, saying, man, you know what? Special teams, I really got to be exposed to everybody and have really personal relationships with them. And I really wish I could have got the opportunity to be better at that when I was just only a position coach. But yeah, man, you hit the nail on the head, man. It's one of the few jobs where you address the whole team. And honestly, you got a return coach that is the receivers coach, and you got a front line coach that's the tight ends and fullbacks coach, and whatever, how that works out. And so, man, you're really getting a semi sneak peek of what it's like to kind of be in that head coaching role, sometimes in that special teams role. So you took the job a little bit with a leap of faith that you're going to go QC, and that he is going to kind of return that favor a little bit for you to be able to get back on the field, get some of those roles. But you end up being a safeties coach. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I skipped the job there. You end up being a linebacker coach, special teams coordinator.
Hey, so I actually sorry to cut you off. I missed you told me to tell you about my wife.
Okay,
so
cool.
I apologize. I missed that part. We can go back to when I'm about to leave Louisville.
When you're about to leave?
Right, I'm about to leave Louisville before Northern Michigan, and this is where you're going to laugh. Okay. We were at a fundraiser, and again, I had worked for Bobby for 4 years prior to this, and so we were close, we're cool, and we're at a fundraiser, and my seat's taken at my spot, and I tell the DFO, like, hey Andy, man, I don't have a seat. So Bobby waves me over. Hey, man, join my seat. So sit down, look to my left, the future Miss Katie Beard.
Okay.
So that was our first ever interaction. And, you know, I tried not to lay it on too heavy at the table out of respect for the head man. But after we left that table, I had a pretty good idea about who my wife was going to be. So we reconnected in about 6 months. So that was I see your face. I knew you'd like that.
I'm waiting for the part where the aggressive, you know, I know that popped out, huh?
What? I mean, it was again and the reason I'm a DB guy by trade.
Yeah.
I love coaching DBs. I love playing DB. We're cut from a different cloth.
That's right. Different type of swag, man.
I had to make sure to control that and be professional and just kind of manipulate my way around it. But
okay,
here we are 4 kids later.
That's awesome, man. So you meet her. This is important to me because like you said, you were bouncing around the industry a little bit, and you know, I do think it's totally different when you don't have that partner to consider their job, you know, whatever else that they have going on in their life. You can move a little more freely, make decisions on your own. But at some point in time, you introduce this person, let alone start introducing kids, man, decision making turns way different.
Right.
You know, what's unique, and I would be interested in doing this, is like a lot of guys that do the podcast with high school sweetheart, college sweetheart. You know, very few guys have I met on the podcast where it's like, man, yeah, you know, I was at this stop and this is when I met that person, because oftentimes just the hours, the volatility of the profession makes it difficult. So how receptive was she of basically the industry, the job that you were in?
Well, she was kind of born into it. She didn't really have a choice when she was younger about moving around and doing all that stuff. Obviously, being the daughter of a big time coach, so she got it from the start. I mean, again, I don't know why. The good Lord blessed me, and He was like, "This is your life partner," and she has been tremendous. There is no better coach's wife in the world in my eyes than Katie Beard, and she's elegant, she's intelligent, she can carry conversation. And I knew once I figured out, like, hey, she was good with it, because she was a pro golfer at the time. So it wasn't easy at first, because we had to look at both of our lives and go, okay, you know, so we want to settle down, we want to have some kids, something's got to give. And for her to have the grace to, you know, put one of her dreams, you know, put our family above one of her dreams is the most selfless thing that you could possibly do.
Awesome. Yeah. So just kind of been born into into a lot of the things that you see as a coach's wife.
Yeah, because that's the thing, Mario. You know, it's hard for, you know, even young guys on our staff that are trying to get out and date right now. I mean, it's a struggle because,
no doubt,
you know, they want and deserve some of your time.
Right.
And if you have a significant other that doesn't understand that you have a limited amount of time. Now, don't be wrong. As men, it's our job to make it a priority. Once we're off, we're off. You can't be on the phone. You can't be, you know, going on guys' trips and stuff like that. Bill Sheridan worked for Detroit Lions. He gave me Nick Sheridan's his son, a good friend of mine, the new OC at Alabama, gave me a great piece of advice. I said, tell me how I can do this. I said, I want to be the best father and husband possible.
Yeah. I
said, you tell me the one thing that I have to do. He goes, Ryan, your only hobby you're allowed to have is your family. He goes, you don't go on guys' trips to Vegas. He said, you don't go to the pub and shoot pool until all hours of the night. He said, if you want your relationship to work and you want to be the father I know you want to be, your family and your career are what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, man. You know, what's interesting about that is the same mentor I mentored a little bit earlier, that is what he told me. He's like, man, I don't fish. I don't golf. I don't all these things that, you know, and some guys they can do that, you know, more power to them. And I'm not beating anybody up that does that. But he was like, man, if you want to be what you just asked, great husband, great father, and a great ball coach, man, you just don't have a lot of time for everything else, man. And
that's right.
That always kind of stuck with me, and I tried to live by that, man. And well, that's awesome. It's interesting just being a coach's daughter, because I could definitely see, I don't have much experience with coaches' daughters in terms of, just discussion or anything like that, but I can definitely see them saying, "Oh, you're a coach? See you, man. I know how that goes."
The best part about it was I was almost dead in my tracks because she said, "Ryan, I don't really know if I should tell you this, but she was like, I swore off any athletic person, until we met." She was like, "I'm not doing it."
Yeah. Oh yeah. So she had that mentality a little bit, huh?
No, she moved 14 times.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just like unheard of. And so yeah, I struck gold there.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, because that's important, man. As like I said, we try to find little nuggets and things, and I think you say you got young guys on your staff who are trying to figure this dating thing out in this profession. It's difficult, man. I mean, it was difficult for me with a girl that I walked into the profession with, just to, honestly, before kids, it was really hard because it was all football. I came home after a game, got our butts kicked, and I'm so mopey and sad. And, I'm happy I fixed that at some point in time in my career. But it's something that we have to navigate, because sometimes, if you're struggling at the house, it's tough to come in and be a good ball coach when, every text you're getting is from the wife upset or about something, man. It's hard to be great at all three, man. And so you got to put some legitimate effort into it. Now let's kind of catch back up to where we were. It's 2019. You're special teams coordinator, safeties. Oh man, I keep doing that. It's 2018. You're the coach, special teams coordinator, linebackers coach at Louisville. Once again, Petrino kind of stuck with his words there. What was interesting about coming back to him, right? Because you left to go take the opportunity at Northern Michigan. You left. You went there to Western Kentucky, and then all of a sudden you're back. You're back. What was it like to kind of reunite with him, and what relationship were you keeping with him throughout that time?
No, it was a really good relationship. And again, I think the thing that gave me an advantage, and I honestly think the reason that it was so smooth when I did, obviously ask for his daughter's hand in marriage, was we had a respect level for each other.
Right.
Before. We had, I had some sweat equity in the relationship already before all this came about. And he knew kind of what I could bring to the table, and that, the one thing that Coach Petrino knows about me is no job's too small. If I need to go get some coffee, hell, I'll go get some coffee today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Never be too big to make the coffee. And I think that, what really made it appealing, that stop, was getting into the special teams role. He had kind of put the nugget out there that was possibly coming down the line. And I knew from my career that would be the best move I could possibly make. And that went into it a lot. And I think that paid off tremendously.
Absolutely. Now, I can't remember the timeline here, but you going to Central Michigan. What was the exit of Louisville? Was the staff transition?
So we got let go in 2018.
Okay.
And it's interesting. There are some moments in life that you don't forget. Being escorted out of the facility to your truck, and you aren't coming back. That is an experience in itself.
Yeah.
Because you're sitting there going, what could I have done? What could I have done more of? All those different things. And that's when those years before that, because you asked about the 2013 to the 2020, Coach Beard. I don't know if I would have handled that near as well as in 2013, but understanding my faith lives in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, period. I know who I am, not because of my actions, but because of who I serve. And I think my faith at that point was tremendously important. And I knew that I was willing to do whatever it took to get back into the game and to get back with someone that I care for, that care about me. And I went old school, man. I literally wrote a zillion handwritten notes. And this is for young coaches out there listening. This is good. I actually invested into some overnight packages that you got to sign for. So you got to sign to get these things from the Postal Service. So I knew some coaches were getting them.
That's right.
I was on the hunt. Yeah. I had to get in the door somewhere. And Coach Jim McElwain got my name at Central Michigan. And he was able to call some of the people that I knew to, get me up there, do an interview. And I was ecstatic to get that job and get back on track.
Let's talk a little bit about the interview process. What time frame were we looking at? Was this post signing day? Was this at the convention? Where was this at?
No, this was post-signing day, and it was one of those things. He had a coordinator go somewhere, and he called on a Thursday, and I go, Coach Mack, what are you looking at? You looking at, a week, a few days, month? He goes, if you could be here in about 48 hours, we're going to start the interview on Sunday afternoon.
Wow.
I said, Coach, you're like 12 hours away. He said, yeah.
You better get to it.
So, hey, I put the phone up, got all my stuff ready, got in the truck. I said, hey, babe, listen, I'll see you in a little bit. Now, here's the kicker. We were starting to get ready for spring. And I had my wife at the time. I had my son Bo was born. And I basically, one of those racks that sits up in the back of your truck with clothes.
Yeah.
I put as much in the truck as I could. And I said, babe, he's got an apartment for me. If I get this job, I'll be back to get you guys.
Wow.
So I said, are you down? She goes, go get it. So went, interviewed. It was a full day interview, did the whole, did the interview process again. And I was able to get the job, spent about 3 weeks in an apartment, and then went back and got my family, and we were moving to Mount Pleasant.
So you interviewed, walked out, shook hands, accepted the job, drove that truck a couple streets over to this apartment that you never stepped foot in before.
I had never seen the apartment.
Right.
I didn't know, was it like cockroach infested? I didn't care.
Right.
I had mouths to feed. I was a man on a mission, Mario.
Oh.
I was going to do whatever it took.
That is awesome. Now you got the job and you're sitting in an awesome position right now. So I can ask this question and not feel bad about it. But what if he says we're going in a different direction? You got all these clothes blowing on the back of your truck, man. What are you going to do? Turn around.
There was no plan B.
There was no plan B, right?
To be honest, between me and you, I probably would have gone to Kalamazoo to see what they had going over there. I would probably have gone to Eastern Michigan, Michigan State, at least stop by the area and been like, hey, how can I help?
Yeah, I'm packed and ready to go, man.
I know. I would have been like, hey, listen. Yeah, you tell me what you need and I'll make it work.
That's awesome, man. But let me backtrack real quick because you talk about that first time getting let go. Fortunately, it was as a staff. You know what I'm saying? It was one of those individual deals, which I think, fortunately, I wasn't able to experience an individual type of firing. But man, I experienced the team. When you watch your head ball coach walking out with the box full of stuff, saying, "Man, I'm not walking in here anymore." Handing over some keys, man. It's emotional. It's tough, and you always hear the quote, "You're not a ball coach till you've been fired." But they don't talk about how tough that is. And I think one of the toughest part, and I kind of related a little bit to, that dark time, after that playing career where you're sitting at the house where you're working, 17, 18, 19 hours a day to now you're working 0 hours a day. That you owe to anybody else, but you're working for yourself now. You're writing those letters. I remember just sitting there touching up all my drill tape and all that kind of stuff, sending letters out, emails out. What was that like for you? Just from a mental standpoint, kind of what are you juggling there? What's your worries?
Yeah, the moment it hit me, to be honest, was in the truck. Right when I sat in the truck, and the stadium was right in front of me, and again, I just got escorted out, and you're going, kind of what now?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And as a dad, as a father, as a husband, as a provider, you don't have a ton of time to sulk in that position. You have to go, oh, okay, this is where we're at financially. This is where we got to get to. And I love what I do. I was not ready to, some guys, they pack it in. They go, man, this isn't for me. Yeah. That wasn't the mindset I was in. At that point, I knew I could coach. I knew I could influence young men. And I knew I could get them to believe that they could be better than they ever thought they could. So I gave myself about 30 minutes, which I probably should have given myself longer to process.
Yeah.
And I sat there. Coach, I sat there. I didn't make any calls. I was just kind of in the moment because we're human and it hurts. And I was sad and I was upset and I was all those different things. But I also know that you can't go home with that.
Yeah. Sure.
You can't come in the door with those type of emotions as the leader of your house. You have to come in with solutions.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, Katie gets on me all the time because, Ryan, I'm here. We can talk and this and that. I'm not real good at that. To be honest, I'm just kind of, I'm fine guy. I'm gonna find a way.
Right.
And, the good Lord found a way for us.
Hey man, so you end up there at Central Michigan and apartment ready to rock and roll for you and the fam whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
And I guess you're essentially walking right into spring ball is what you mentioned.
Yeah.
And so we hadn't really talked much about the X and O stuff, but you're what you've made several stops at this point. You've had to learn new defenses, new schemes, new language, all that kind of stuff, new cultures. What do you do when you're walking into this thing on the fly and you're ready to be a Chippewa at that point in time? You're ready to come and embrace that culture. Yeah. So what do you do? What did you do to prepare yourself to be the Central Michigan linebackers coach, special teams coordinator, or excuse me, you're safeties coach, right?
Yeah, I was back at home in the DB room.
Yeah, in the DB room. Yeah.
And again, I had some time as coordinating special teams, and I knew what I believed in. And the thing with Jim McElwain is he is a special teams guy, and he is another no nonsense type of dude. Yeah. Things are going to be sharp, things are going to be detailed, things are going to be at a very, very high level, and all the time. So I knew that I had to bring my A game, and luckily for us, that year at Louisville, we were lights out on special teams. Okay. And it helped. So Coach Mack, again, that's kind of how I got into that position, was because the numbers were in my favor, and he liked what we did. Now, again, when he was super involved with it during his time in Florida, we kind of evolved our system into a little bit of that, which is always fine because he's the head coach. What the head coach wants, I'm going to try my best to deliver to him.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I stuck to my guns in regards to my beliefs schematically. And, the way the game's evolving, it's interesting because normally now when you go in as a special teams coordinator, it's about your punt return. You know what I mean? Because kickoff, return, it's interesting just the numbers, what they say about how many touchbacks, how many, all of that stuff has changed the game a little bit. But I felt good about that. And, again, we had a good year. We had a really good year at Central Michigan. We had All-American punt returner. We were top 5 in almost every category except kickoff, and we won the MAC West. And we had been 1-11 the year before, and then to win the MAC West and play in the championship was huge.
That's awesome, man. Well, you kind of brought up an interesting question here for me in regards to the evolution of the game. Every year there's and this has been since I played college ball. There was always hey, now you can't do a cut block in this different angle, and okay, they're changing it up the next year. They're slightly different. There was nothing just monumental or groundbreaking. Now here over the last probably decade since I've been out, you've had this fair catch rule that you can move up. When all of a sudden you're starting to get things like this, and I know the NFL adopted that what is it? The new kickoff rule where they're all
right.
Planted at a certain point, and the way the contact is made and all that kind of stuff. When you're starting to see some of this stuff eke into the game, what kind of dialogue are you having? Because one of the best things I say coaches across the board are prepares. It's how many timeouts do you have left in the last couple of minutes? Everybody has a chart. Everybody has a chart for this kind of stuff. But when these things are new and you're trying to figure it out and discuss it, like you're with one of the best in the game of all time, one of these names, as a head ball coach, and you're sitting there trying to have these discussions. What is the dialogue like when you're changing some of these things?
I think it goes to the efficiency of what you do. Here's a prime example, and this is one of the best ways to look at it. You only have a certain amount of time throughout the week to prepare for your opponent. If the studies show that they're going to fair catch the football every single time, instead of taking 10 minutes that week on your kickoff, you don't need 10 minutes that week to practice that. You can take 6 of those minutes and put it elsewhere in regards to your plan.
Right.
So the analytics of, again, does a team fair catch? Are they multiple in returns? Are they more simple? Even down to, the fourth down chart has changed tremendously when they're actually going to punt the football.
Right.
Because a lot of times the guys that are strictly with the analytics book, you're going to get a bunch of gophers in the game.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Meaning, with a manageable D&D on third down, you're going to go for it.
Right.
And I think that's where the dialogue has changed, where not never, but you didn't talk about it as much until it's truly started to affect the game.
Yeah. I worked for an old school NFL dude who's now past Guy Morris, and man, if it was fourth down, we were punting it. It did not matter. It was like, we just didn't even talk about it. Now you just look at the game and the amount of, it's third down and 7, and you're seeing guys run inside zone just because they already know they're going to go for it there. You know what I'm saying? It's just right. Interesting how that part has evolved, especially as you sit in your seat now, because this is your wheelhouse now, the decision-making process. What are we doing? Trying to give those coordinators a heads up to allow for them to be effective in their play calling, man. I know that's an important deal that's just new. So that's pretty cool, man. Now, man, we're over an hour here, which is awesome. A testament to how good.
Sorry about that.
No, man, I'm enjoying this like no other. But let's go ahead and transition there to Missouri State. You get your current opportunity now, but in 2020, you take this role as the defensive coordinator. Just once again, talk about the transition and talk about the opportunity for the first time for yourself to call one side of the ball. I know you were a special teams coordinator, but the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, Bobby called right after the convention. He had interviewed with Missouri State. He was going to be the new head coach at Missouri State, and he knew that deep down, I wanted the opportunity to coordinate defense at some point.
Yeah.
He knew I had the mind for it. He knew that honestly, at my core, I'm one of those refuse to lose type guys. And that with a defensive mindset, that can be helpful. And I also took the job with an understanding of, I want to learn not only to be a defensive coordinator, but to be a head coach.
Yeah.
Because we all have goals. And one of my goals was to be a head coach. I wanted to be prepared to be the very best head coach I possibly could when my opportunity came. And he told me yes. He said, I'll teach you how to do the numbers and the roster management and all that stuff. So not only did I take a great opportunity as defensive coordinator, because we were extremely successful. We set the sack record 2 years in a row. We were top in the country in third down efficiency. Last year we had a little bit of a reset, just with some youth and some injuries, some things. We just weren't good enough last year, period, on defense. And that starts with me. I got to do a better job. But, it was a really good time as a coordinator. And obviously when you have a high powered offense like that Coach Petrino brings, it's a unique situation for a defensive play caller, because, half the time he's sitting there, I need the ball to score. Give me the rock. I need it to score.
Right.
And you're sitting there going, well, Coach, I think we're hanging in there. Obviously the conversations with Coach Petrino were slightly different than that.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
You get the gist.
I get the gist of it.
Yeah.
Well,
no, it was good.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, for timing purposes, man, we'll definitely have to do a part 2 at some point in time. We can get more in depth, but I do want to kind of bump to 2022, 2023 kind of time frame where you make this transition to the head coach. How did that go down? What was the situation that allowed for that opening to be there? And did you interview? How were you the guy?
Yeah, so the craziness happened with Coach Petrino, whether he was he going, the rumors came out about A&M, it came out about a few other places, and then he ended up going to UNLV. And about 10 minutes later, my phone rang, and it was our previous AD who just went to Eastern Kentucky yesterday. Congrats to, Kyle Motes. But he called and he said, I need you to be ready for interview at 11 o'clock. And it was about 9:30. So again, preparation is critical. I had my interview book ready. I had my thoughts collected of what we needed to do to get this place where we needed to go. And we sat in that room for 5 hours. I mean, my wife's calling like, hey, are you okay? What's going on? And we talked from everything to building a collective /NIL/roster management to future scheduling, building a staff. It was an incredible experience to be able to sit down and have a candid conversation like that with an AD and walk away feeling good about it.
Yeah.
that's really when I knew that all those years of preparing and doing the things that guys tell you to do and going to conventions and, dying to be a part of that 35 under 35 group, those things have paid off because I walked out and I go, that's my job. This job was made for me and I'm praying for an opportunity. And about 2 hours later, he and the president call and offer me the job.
Yeah. Man, I don't know why this popped up in my head, but this guy I used to work for, he would always, if something crazy would happen, he would always spin his chair around real slowly and look at you and say, so you want to be a ball coach. All right. So now all of a sudden you are the ball coach. You are the guy, right? All this, the responsibility of a program is kind of falling into your lap. What were some of the first things that you did as a first-time head football coach at a program that you had been at, you were familiar with at that point in time?
Sure. Yeah. And again, we all have our collective thoughts on what we would do and what we've gotten in a positive and a negative from everybody we've been with.
Yeah.
And the first thing that we did as a staff was come together with our football team, because now, you got to recruit your own team.
Absolutely.
Heavier than you do everyone else.
Yeah.
And we had a really candid conversation of exactly what we were going to be about. I mean, down to the detail of how we were going to dress, what we were going to wear in the equipment, in the weight room. Just basically got out our standards and expectations so that there wasn't gray area.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you this, and this is important for everybody to know, and it's the truth. And again, maybe people were much more prepared than I was. They probably were. It's like having a kid. You think you're ready to be a dad. You think you've got all the answers, and you don't.
Right.
And it was just the same way for me as a head coach. Half the time you think you're doing a good job. The other half of the time in the back of your mind, you're going, Ryan, how did you not see that? How are we not able to maneuver around this before it became an issue? So I've learned a tremendous amount, and it's been a good experience so far.
That's awesome, Coach. Well, the big thing that you guys are working through right now, and you made mention of, and this kind of be our last question before I ask you about 35 and 35 and close up, but the transition, right? You transition and you've been on the opposite side of this whole deal. Right? You've been FCS for, I guess as long as you guys been playing ball, maybe D2 at some point in time, but being FCS for a long time now. You're making a transition to Conference USA in 25. What changes for you, right? Is there anything that you're doing right now to prep for that, or is it just kind of just worry about this season and kind of worry about that as it comes?
Yeah, for the last few weeks, I've been fundraising about as hard as we possibly could because, unfortunately for us, we need some foundation with facilities. That's the one thing we have to do is we have to get our facilities upgraded. We have to make sure that we look the part. I've been extremely proud of our student athletes. They've been working extremely hard in the classroom, on the football field, and we have hit on some really good players in the transfer portal as well as some grassroots recruiting with our high school program that has really put us in a position to, I think, make the jump effectively. So I would say we haven't done a ton different just in regards to understanding, if you're going to be in that league, you have to understand where the numbers go with the NIL. You have to understand how recruiting kind of changes and evolves. But I think that we have a beat on all of that, and the future's never been more bright at Missouri State. I can promise you that.
Amen, brother. Well, I'm rooting you on, man. Before I let you go, though, I did want to hit on the 35 and 35. You were part of this past year's class. It was a pleasure to have you in there and continue to uplift, our program. What was it like for you, and why should guys apply for this?
Mario, it was one of the most impactful programs I've ever gone through as a football coach. I've gone to the convention every single year in my 15 years or however long I've been a coach. But I've never had an event like that surrounds you with like-minded people and pours that type of knowledge into you of what you need to know to get yourself and your career where you want it to go. You sit there and you look around at some of the names and the faces that are in the room with you, and the old saying, you are the company you keep.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to say to the guys out there applying, I applied. I'm not embarrassed to say this. I applied for 5 years straight. Okay. It is a program that's hard to get into. but it's absolutely worth it. Don't give up on yourself. Keep applying. Keep doing whatever you have to do to network to try to get your name in there, because the program, you can't even put a price on it. Again, I keep in contact with a lot of the guys in my 35 under 35 class. I consider you a friend at this point, and a guy that, I can come to with questions, concerns, and things just to build the game, because that's refreshing to me.
Yeah.
You are a football purist in the way that you approach the game, and you want to coach coaches. And in turn, that affects our game in a great way. And the world needs football now more than it ever has.
Coach, I appreciate the kind words, man. And once again, I appreciate you elevating that program. And thank you for saying that last part about that you apply multiple times. This is a head ball coach with a crazy experience, about as pure as it comes when it comes to the profession. And, that's my least favorite thing to do, send those emails out saying you didn't make it. I would love to have more people in the class, but it is a part of it. And I appreciate your persistence and consistency in applying, and definitely proud to have you a part of our program, man. But before I let you go, if you got a social media you love for people to kind of keep up with you and your program, man, please drop it here, and we'll make sure to share that in the show notes.
Okay, great. You want me to say it to you?
Yeah. Go ahead and say it. Go ahead and say it for us.
Twitter, all right, RY_Beard, BEARD, RY_BEARD. Give us a shout. Let us know what you want to know about Missouri State football. Again, historic time to be a part of the program. I appreciate you, Mario.
All right, brother. Have a good one, man.
Take care.
CoachComm has been delivering tough headsets for tough teams for more than 31 years. It's why 97% of FBS teams and thousands of high schools across the country rely on CoachComm. Get the best for your team. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. If you'd like to learn more about this week's episode, head over to AFCA.com. There, you can access every episode and find corresponding show notes. Remember, you can catch every episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm on wherever you get your podcast, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and grow. Keep up with the latest news by following us on social media. Connect with us at Inside the Headset, and remember to tag us when you share your favorite episodes. For more updates on all things AFCA, be sure to follow the @WeAreAFCA social media accounts. If you're not a part of the AFCA community yet, visit AFCA.com to join thousands of NFL, college, and high school coaches nationwide and across the globe. Elevate your coaching game with an AFCA membership. You'll gain exclusive access to the annual AFCA convention, magazine, digital library, and AFCA Insider email. Stay up to date with the latest stories and news on the AFCA website. More than just a convention, the AFCA offers continuous education, guidance, networking, and more. Celebrate the past and shape the future with the AFCA. It's about fostering exceptional coaches who create outstanding teams and even better individuals. Invest in your skills and make a lasting impact today by engaging with the AFCA. Your journey starts here.